Alright, so back to some Runeterra deck videos, and today I actually got a little bit of a lesser played deck than what we're used to. You know, all the tournaments that we've been casting lately, a lot of mid-range Frostbite, which is a deck that I did earlier this week. A lot of, control decks as far as Karma Ezreal, basically any Ezreal deck that you can freaking think of at this point. We do see Endure Spiders popping up a little bit more as well. And then some of the other common Bannerman archetypes, etc., etc. So a lot of the same decks usually. However, I want to touch on a deck that we haven't seen in a little while that used to be absolutely rampant and basically the cancer of the game. Demacia Elusives now as a deck archetype that is still competitive. So with that being said, even though we haven't seen it a lot at tournaments lately, I want to take a second to go through this deck because it is 100% a great ladder deck. A lot of people won't be expecting it, and they won't be expecting the OTK potential that comes out of this deck, which you're going to see in both of these games, by the way. The Moose is most certainly loose in one of these games at least. So with that said, we're going to get into the deck itself, followed by 2 games as always. Let's do it. Alright, so here is the one and only Demacia Elusive's deck. This is a pretty typical list. I think this actually matches the list that is up on the Mobalytics top tier deck list. So if you guys want to check it out, the link will be in the description below to not only the deck code, but the link to the actual Mobalytics deck as well. So, alright, what's the point of this deck, you ask, right? As you can see, pretty low curve deck. Tops out at 2 Great Horn Companion. The ultimate goal of this deck is having a huge swing turn, okay? Now, on top of that, kind of like a side quest, is just kind of poking damage with elusives. So old school elusives, if you guys remember, you just, you keep tossing down elusives to the board. You protect them with stuff like Twin Disciples and other things. And then you eventually just overrun your opponent with lots of elusive damage that they can't block every single turn. This version takes a little bit of a different approach. You can see here there's no, Twin Disciples, or this isn't the Freljord, the old school Freljord version with the Elixir of Iron. So none of that protection stuff going on here. What we do have is stuff like Relentless Pursuit, Keeper of Masks, which is actually not bad in this deck at all. We do have some protection in Ranger's Resolve just because it's a damn good card. And Ghost. God, I love this card in this deck. Just to put it in perspective, this 1-cost burst spell card, it can literally, this card alone will allow you to do like 20 damage in one turn. So pretty simple combo that you're going to see a lot in this deck. Let's say you have a Great Horn Companion. You pop that puppy down. You go ahead and next up, you're going to get a Laurent Blade Keeper on it. So now it's at a 7/7. And then, whoop, all of a sudden it's elusive because you just played a Ghost on it. So now a 7/7 with Scout and elusive, guess what? That's 14 damage to the face of your opponent if they don't have any other ways of dealing with it. If you are able to get something like 2 Laurents down, that's 18 in one turn with it. And you can obviously do this a similar thing with Grizzled Ranger as well. So just a lot of burst potential. Obviously, Zed, another prime target for something like Ghost, as well as Laurent Blade Keeper. Just lots of pressure overall in this deck. So that's kind of like the dream elusive combo, but otherwise you are able to just kind of out-aggro your opponent early on. If you do get a Green Glade Duo down that's consistently doing some elusive chip damage, if you do get a Lucian with a Senna down with, a Relentless Pursuit or something in hand, you will still just be able to have one of those usual aggro victories that you see in something like the Lucian MF decks, where you just have lots of units on the board. Your Relentless Pursuit with a bunch of quick attack units. Now, one card that I'm not crazy about with this deck, but I did decide to keep it in for now, is Navori Highwayman, not Conspirator. So it's decent because of something like Keeper of Masks. It's also decent with something like Green Glade Duo. It'll go ahead and proc and add 2 attack to the Green Glade Duo. And that is good when you are just worried about pressuring and doing as much damage as possible. So it does help the strategy. However, if you're looking for cards to take out, to put in some different units or some different spells that are going to be able to allow you to do more burst damage in one turn, this would probably be one of the cards I would consider taking out. So with that said, we're going to get into both these games, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about with the Moose being loose, because goddamn does a Ghost on Great Horn Companion feel oh so good. All right, so we have the first of 2 Demacia Elusive games coming up, and you know, God, it just felt so good to get this combo off. You know, and you might not get exactly the combo with the moose, but damn, does it feel good to let this moose loose. And you guys are going to see here in a second exactly how we do that. So we do have 2 moose in the first hand, so I'm not going to lie. I think when I first saw this hand too, I was like, God damn, this hand is not that great. It's definitely a little rough. I didn't really have much to curve out. Turns 2, 3. We did get the Grizzled Ranger to thankfully give us a 4-drop. But as you can see here, now there's 2 Relentless Pursuit in our hand as well. So this is just not looking like that great of a first hand with this deck. But you're going to see here in a second exactly why this deck can be so good, because even though we had such a crappy start, it's very easy for us to swing the game back in our direction and just do a crap ton of damage in one turn. So our opponent's actually playing some sort of like spider aggro deck, which I have been testing myself, so it's good to see this on ladder in Diamond right now. Awesome to see somebody else playing this deck. So obviously I do want to try to maintain how many, or to kind of regulate how many spider tokens my opponent actually has on the field. It's probably going to be a little tough because you typically don't want to be trading with this deck. You want your elusive units to kind of just hang back on your side of the field. So honestly, going up against something like spider aggro, they might be able to aggro me down before I'm able to do anything. But being that we made it to turn 5, we are able to get one of the moose down. And although it's not in the best of situations, we are also able to get a Relentless Pursuit with it. So, all right, this is a very, very important thing that I'm going to go over real quick. So anybody who's even experienced players that are in like high-level tournaments make this mistake all the time. And it is Relentless Pursuit that I'm talking about here. All right, listen, if you have 2 or even 3 Relentless Pursuits in your hand, you need to use those the second you can. All right, so I'll give you an example as a comparison. If you have 3 Deny in your first hand and your opponent plays a deniable spell, pretty much no matter what that spell is, within reason, you're pretty much going to want to play one of those denies. And because you're not going to get value out of them if you wait. Your hand is already bad having 3 denies in it. You need to get rid of them. So our hand was incredibly bad early on in the game. By getting that moose down and getting the Relentless Pursuit out, we now have a 5/5 body that can attack twice on our opponent's attack turn. And at the time, we were able to get rid of spider tokens so that they at least wouldn't level. We know and we see here, obviously, they had another release in their hand. We were able to get 2 more spider tokens down. So it is what it is, but it still gave us an opportunity to put pressure on the opponent where, honestly, our hand was not providing us any good way of providing pressure. So, look at the hand. Just take a look at this gorgeous hand right now. We have another moose. We have a Laurent Bladekeeper. We have a Relentless Pursuit. We have an elusive unit. Just even though it's a Blade Scout, it still does the job. And Ghost. This is the type of hand that you need to keep an eye out for when playing this deck. You need to always be thinking to yourself, how can I put together an OTK? How can I get this Exodia type hand of 4 or 5 cards that when played all at the same time, deal 20 damage? All right, and this is exactly what we're going to see here in just a second. Our opponent does decide to start pulling in some of the units, get some damage off. What I do here is I use the Concussive Palm to really just be mana efficient. I was considering just letting the damage through, which honestly you could argue to just let the damage through. I would have probably been able to get an additional Laurent Bladekeeper down. I think I actually get one down here anyways. I'm not sure. I forget when I play next. Yeah, so I do end up getting the Laurent down anyways, and then I can play it next turn. But it would have given me an additional 4 mana. And going into this next turn, I would have actually been able to play a Relentless Pursuit as well. I don't think I would have needed that much mana, but I'm just saying, where there's more damage to be done, we want to do it, okay? So you can see I'm prepping my turn now, right? Now, here's the issue. My opponent has 12 mana. Wow, I can't count. 11 mana. You need to be careful of responses. We can't just willy-nilly start attacking and throwing stuff out. He might have a response. He might end up throwing something down that's going to completely wreck our plans. Now, with that said, we have a spider aggro deck as our opponent. Pretty good chance he doesn't have any defensive spells. We see the Arachnoid Host come down. And that to me is a huge sign to just go for it. I'm not really putting my opponent on any defensive spells right now based on how they've played. Most of what they've been playing is aggressive. It is very much a spider aggro deck at heart. So we get the Uller Laurent down, we get the Blade Scout down, and we get the Moose buffed up with Ghost up to 9-7. God, does it feel good. And this is why that Blade Scout was important. We see the Grasp of the Undying come out, but with the Blade Scout, we have exact lethal. You know, guys, sometimes there's just certain plays in games that feel good. And let me tell you, winning with a Moose is one of those games in Legends of Runeterra that just feels really good. All right, it's a freaking Moose, guys. God, all right. We have game number 2. We have, Jesus, 2 Relentless Pursuit again. I'm telling you, if you ever get stuck with Relentless Pursuit in your hand early game, you have to find an opportunity to use it. So, we saw the Scout method of kind of overtaking the game and getting that win with that huge swing turn, right? The other method is, I guess Zed is kind of his own method, whereas you could separate Zed from the other quick attacks in Lucian and Senna, but they're all quick attack at the end of the day, so essentially you can win via a lot of quick attack units hitting the board and eventually doing a lot of damage to your opponent's face. So we have the Zed to start off with. If you take a look in hand, we also have a Keeper of Masks and a Ghost. So again, first turn already. What am I thinking? All right, getting Zed on board with a Ghost and Keeper of Masks seems like it would be pretty OP, right? So that's what I'm going to be trying to look to set up here in the next couple of turns. Not only that, we got a Relentless Pursuit. So if we're able to get that off with a Relentless Pursuit, that is a very big Zed. That is a very big elusive Zed, I might add. On top of a Relentless Pursuit, that is a lot of clones as well. And if we are able to level up the Zed before that, the copied clone also gets elusive, which is a very big deal. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to be that guy or that girl that plays Ghost on your Zed, tries to attack for lethal, and then you realize that your clone can get blocked. It feels really bad, I'm not going to lie. Don't make that mistake, okay? It has to be leveled first to copy these stats and keywords as well. I think I actually double check in this game too, just to make sure that I understand how the hell the card works, because there's so many cards in the game, sometimes I can't remember. All right, that's besides the point. So we get the Zed down. Again, we are thinking, how are we going to go into our next attack turn? You're always thinking about your next attack turn, how much mana you have available. With a Relentless Pursuit in your hand, especially, you're going to want to be thinking about saving that 3 spell mana for the Relentless Pursuit. Going in for the attack here is pretty freaking one of the easiest decisions I've made in my Legends of Runeterra career. Our opponent's got no mana. All of our opponent's followers got 1 health. This is an easy peasy lemon squeezy attack. We go ahead and get the Grizzled Ranger down as well, which is always good to get rid of that before it's able to get a scout attack off. Now you just have a 3/4 body to deal with. Feels a lot better. Feels a lot better, man. So again, we're one step closer to leveling this Zed. We have another Navori Blade Scout. Now I'm thinking, okay, this Keeper of Masks feels even better with 2 Navori Blade Scouts on the same turn. So you'd be surprised how much damage this deck can put out with a very small amount of mana. So you get something like 2 Navori Blade Scouts with just the Keeper of Masks, that's 6 damage. Like, for basically 4 mana, but only 2 for the Blade Scouts, right? So, very, very good card, Keeper of Masks in this deck. So do not underestimate that card with basically just being able to win you the game at any given point. The reason I'm going for the stun here is not necessarily to preserve my life total, but actually to just get more units on the board. Because I know I am going to be going for this Keeper of Masks play. There was really, honestly, now that I'm looking back in the situation, it might have been smarter to let the damage through and then go ahead and play the Grizzled Ranger and still leave myself with 3 spell mana, because then the Grizzled Ranger has Scout. So, you can argue it both ways, but you can kind of see all these interactions, right? You're seeing how all of these cards work together. They all buff each other. They all give you that ultimate goal of being able to do as much damage in one turn as humanly possible. This keg, we knew the Make It Rain was going to come out with this keg. It was a foregone conclusion. Thankfully for us, and this is probably what won us the game, honestly, the RNG gods blessed us by letting us keep our Zed. Pretty sure that won us the game there, because this Zed will now have the dream happen that we were trying to go for before, of getting buffed with this Keeper of Masks. So, Now we have a situation where we can play the Ghost and a Relentless Pursuit in the same turn. If we play a Ghost, now this was iffy. If we play the Ghost on the Zed now, which I think it is what we decide to do, the Fizz can actually still block the Elusive Zed, and something else can block the clone. So I do think that my opponent misplayed here, because there was no reason for him to not block. Like, everything should have been blocked minus the Navori Blade Scout. He would have prevented the Zed from leveling, which I think might have actually let him live. I'd probably have to do the math again. Because the problem is, even though Fizz would die and my Zed would live and I'd be able to play another Relentless, at least my Zed doesn't level. So on the next attack, I'm just going to have a 4-2 Zed again. And the other clone won't be elusive, crucially, because it's not leveling, right? We just went over that earlier. That's a very big deal. But because this Zed ends up striking the Nexus, we get a leveled Zed, and that means that next time it goes to attack with this elusive, it's going to summon an elusive clone. So I don't know if my opponent thought that Ghost was maybe just for the attack, but no, it's definitely for the turn. Definitely for the turn. And you can see here that's going to be 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. Maybe it didn't matter, right? Because I think if our opponent blocks here, they actually do still live. That's right. So I actually end up winning with other elusive units. So that block didn't actually matter. Keeping the Fizz, I guess, made sense, at least until the Relentless Pursuit anyways. So this forces out the Fizz block. Always feels good to get rid of a Fizz when your opponent was trying to save it. Doesn't look like Terra Cooper here has any mana to go ahead and buff this Fizz or save the Fizz or anything. So we're going to do 8 damage to the face. Got 2 damage left, and now it's really just about finishing out this turn, right? I mean, at this point, we don't have elusives, and our opponent has a lot of units on board, so there's no way we're going to get just like a regular attack through, especially with that Moose coming down. What we can do is start focusing on elusive units. As long as we can give ourselves an opportunity to play as many elusive units as possible on the next turn, we should be able to push through this 2 damage. That is why I play this Grizzled Ranger, for actually 2 reasons. First reason, to block this Moose. Second reason is, if I played it and it dragged out like a Make It Rain from Terra Cooper, that means that it's less of a chance that my elusive units get hit. Whereas if I played, the Navori, oh Jesus, I can't even, Green Glade Duo, that's the one. If I played the Green Glade Duo, it would have had a chance of getting hit by Make It Rain, so that's why I decided to go with the Grizzled Ranger. But anyways, you get the point. We got more elusive units. They do have the Blade Scout on their side of the field, but fortunately for us, that only lasts for 1 turn. Feels really bad when you only have elusive for 1 turn. Too bad you're not playing the deck that we're playing to utilize that Blade Scout and blow out your opponent with it with Keeper of Masks, because that card's OP too. So I just love that Keeper of Masks is even a thing in this deck, because I feel like there's like really no other decks that utilize Keeper of Masks. Maybe I'll make a Spider aggro deck with Keeper of Masks. I don't know. Anyways, we got another keg that hits the field, which is scary, because that keg could go ahead and again give us a Make It Rain that just wrecks our board. So this is exactly why I play the Lucian again. With the Lucian, we get 2 things happening. If they do clear our board, guess what? Lucian levels up. If they clear it, but not Lucian, which actually wouldn't happen. The only thing that would happen would be the Zed survives and they clear everything else. So there's that. But I don't want to throw any of my elusive units down yet, because I want to give my opponent the chance to play more spells, expend more mana, have less options in their hand. This is a concept that is utterly important in every game that you play. Now with only 2 mana, I feel much safer with going ahead, playing the Green Glade Duo, playing the Navori Blade Scout, have lots of elusive units at this point for a total of 7 damage. They can go ahead and make the Fizz elusive, but it's not quite going to be enough to block all the damage. And again, nothing matters except doing that last bit of damage for game with this deck. You have to keep that in mind. Do not worry if you're falling behind. I promise you this deck has the 100% capability to pull a win out of its ass and give you the victory. Alright guys, and that will do it for this Demacia Elusives deck. If you are on ladder trying to make it to Diamond or even to Masters, I highly recommend using this deck to climb. It will get you some quick victories as well. So if you're one of those people that usually reverts to burn decks to get quick wins on ladder, this deck's probably for you. So as always guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Don't forget to like the video if you like the video. And as always, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. Peace out.